Hydration is key. And when it comes to body water, here's why. It has inositol in it, which is good for your brain. It has niacinamide in it, which is excellent for your circulation. And just the water itself is excellent for your internal organs and your joints. It has 7 grams of carbs, which is excellent for your energy source while you're working out. And it has each and every B vitamin that you need to remain energetic. Body Aqua. Be bold, be brave, and be only daring to yourself.
You're live with Alvin After Dark, brought to you by BMW Freeport, located at 291 West Sunrise Highway in Freeport, New York. Please visit our service department located at 100 Cleveland Avenue in Freeport, New York. Please also visit our Mercedes-Benz store in Massapequa on Sunrise Highway. Please visit Matt Dempsey. Tell him Alvin Peter sent you. Tell him to give you a Mercedes-Benz for free. That's right, I said it for free. Happy holidays, everyone. I can't believe it's the holiday season. But we got a good show for you tonight. Once again, I'm bringing you some good content. Friends of the show is FSADB, which is Friend Support, the Anglican Diocese of Belize. Also BIG, Belize Independence Group. Also DJ More Fire, DJ Leon Hyde. All the DJs out there, I know you're getting ready for the holiday season. But once again, we have a great show for y'all tonight. And recap from last week's show. 2 weeks we did straight, the whole Me Too movement. Shout out to Miss Cheryl Marie, who came out and shared her personal experience of sexual misconduct and sexual harassment in the workplace. But as you see, I finally got a brother up here. I keep hearing, I get nothing but women on the show, but all the women want to, they want to come on and talk about it. So, but we have a serious topic tonight, and before, first I have to introduce his brother. I met this brother a few years ago, and the crazy part is we know the same people, been in the same places together, but never really met one another until one crazy night. And the brother's name is Mr. LeRod Smalls. And tell me about yourself, please.
Well, first, I'm just glad to be here, brother. I salute you, man. I appreciate you for creating this platform, and I'm grateful to be here to share this platform with you. That's important. And for everybody who's here and checking it out, definitely continue to support this good movement.
Definitely.
Sharing good information. So I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised, serial entrepreneur by force. I followed the traditional path that most people do. I went to college to come out and get a great job. And after 5 years working as an employee on Wall Street, I lost my job and decided to become an entrepreneur. So since 2003, I have never punched a clockwork for anybody else. I have been hunting, fishing, killing, and only eating what I kill. And that is the way of the world for the entrepreneur. But we're here to talk about some
real issues.
Yeah, some real corrective issues that
real issues
looked at. And I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And we're gonna get in those issues in a minute. But before, I want to tell you about the wonderful weekend I had. I had the opportunity to break bread with my lodge brothers. And you know something? I'm gonna say it. This brother is traveling the same direction as I do, and I don't really say that out loud too often.
Salute.
And we are both traveling men. We're both Freemasons, and that's how we connected. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
We definitely connected on the level, which was great because it gave us opportunity to receive one another with open arms, and while receiving each other with open arms, we immediately clicked, and the energy was there. I mean, just from minimal conversation, the energy was there. But I just want to tell you about the weekend I had. So to let you know that me and my lodge brothers, we had a lot of community service this weekend. So let's look at some of those pictures from this weekend. So this right here, we did our annual canned food drive for Ebenezer Methodist Church, which is on 100th and Lexington Avenue. Pastor Linnell Young, she pastors that church. It's a small congregation, and sometimes having a small congregation is a very good thing. The next picture over is a picture of my brother Timothy Lewis, who after that event we went to another event in the evening. And we did community service and fed the community of Harlem at the community center on 144th and Lenox Avenue. So we did that on Sunday evening, and it's a blessing because we can actually be out there and meet the people, shake hands, rub elbows, and who provided the food was Little Taste of Seafood provided the food, and they're on 2528 Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard in Harlem between 146 and 147th. So so we definitely did that this weekend. It was wonderful. It was touching. What's the next picture? There you go. So we was out there at the community center, and we made sure to take care of the people in the neighborhood. So coming back towards us, once again, we have a great show this evening, a very good show this evening. So I want to give a big shout out to Jacob, who's watching, Erica, Jordan, who's watching, Omar Cruz. So without any further ado, I want you to share experience of what happened to you recently.
Okay, so what brought this whole conversation up, and I'm really glad that you bring in highlight to it.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, negativity sells, but not on the other side where there's a solution.
That's right.
I've noticed when I watch the news, I talk to my family, I talk to my wife, the news is inundated with negative stuff, like things that happen, but there is no solution. It's dog bites man, this kid got kidnapped, someone got shot, but that is it. Not, okay, there's a problem systemically, there's a problem in the society, and here's a solution, or here's what we need to look at. So to give you guys a snapshot of what has happened is recently I had a small altercation with someone locally in my town here in Brooklyn, New York. And what happened is, because of, whatever in this scenario, we ended up both being locked up, okay, arrested at the point of contact. And when we did, we went through the entire process of jail to the court, right? So in the New York City system, you go to a precinct, they process you, and then they take you downtown, whether it's in Brooklyn or in Manhattan or in Queens, and then you get processed for court. Now, so much happened in that process that I had never seen before, even though I had been through that process. So I'm not saying it bragging at all. Trust me, I'm not proud of it. But, as a youth, as a younger person, I found myself in that process. But going through it as an adult, as an entrepreneur, as a community leader, as a father, as a husband, with a whole new set of eyes, I saw something I never saw before. I saw young people at the bottom. I saw people being trampled over, and not because they were being beat up over, but because they were being used for a superfluous purpose. And I was upset about that. I realized that many of our young people, brown people, and I'm gonna just be out there and say it, Alvin, I gotta just tell you, that young brown boys and girls and young men, just like myself and those that you may know, were being pulled through this system and used for different reasons than what most people would think. Most people would think that you're being just processed through the system, and I found out that they were being used for economic reasons. And I'm going to be discussing that a little bit with you in further detail.
Okay.
But I was frustrated. I was angry, and I decided I was going to do something about it. And we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
We definitely need to talk about that.
And having a conversation with him and listening to the story, and when you hear people say, "I got locked up for no reason," you hear people that got locked up for no reason, and not even a challenge. Because I always like to use the word challenge instead of the problem. But the problem is that you have people in jail for literally no reason, where you can have someone in jail where their bail is $500, yet they can't afford the $500.
That's correct.
So they sit there.
That's right.
Until the $500 is paid.
That's right.
Now, that's crazy.
That's right.
So what I did was, and we're going to talk about this because what is amazing is, like, when I did this show about the sexual misconduct and rape, you hear it, but when you read the statistics, and you say to yourself, I didn't realize it was this deep. So we're gonna read some of the stats on 40 reasons why our jails are full of black and Spanish poor people, because it's real. And now tell us what happened when somebody else went through.
Okay. Right.
Let them know. Let them know.
We had a conversation about that preluding this, and I would tell you that during my process, and I'm going to give you this as a real conversation, a younger white boy had come through into the cell at the precinct where I was, and he was quite confident and I wouldn't say he had his bravado on, but he was pretty comfortable in the space. And he said to me that, I'm not going to downtown, I'm getting a DAT. Now, for some of you that don't know, a DAT is a desk appearance ticket, which basically just means that you're just gonna see the sergeant there and they're gonna give you a ticket and send you home. And for a young kid, that's a simple process. Your parents come pick you up, or if not, you just go home. But what I realized in that moment was that he had been there before, and other kids like him had been there before. I even overheard the cops talking about, hey, listen, we're going to give him a DAT. And what he was being charged with was for smoking marijuana, for smoking weed, and hanging out. Now, when I got processed and I went through the system and I ended up in those cells, right, the bottom of the barrel, if you will, in Brooklyn, all I saw, I didn't see any white boys. I didn't see any other minorities at all. I just saw brown people.
Black and Spanish
people, just like me, that were down there for the exact same thing. You could hear everybody's talking about it. I was picked up for smoking over here. I was loitering out. They got me on, hanging out over here. And I realized something. That the same opportunities for policing, real policing, where you are a part of the community, where you're here to do some good, where you're here to guide and direct, not just to charge somebody and push them through the system. See, because what I found is that officers, and not to say that all officers are bad.
You're right.
Because I have a lot of friends, my family are officers. But if the system promotes, if they're doing something to incentivize officers to delay the time, of course they're going to keep you in the precinct and rack up overtime to have you.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, man. To have you process paperwork for 6 hours that doesn't take that long to do, and to send you through a system where now there's going to be other officers that got to watch you and move you through. So it's really a big money grab, and we're at the end of it.
Real quick, I want to see who's watching. Big shout out to Erica Jordan, who's always watching. Omar Cruz, Jennifer Edwards out of Maryland.
Thank you.
Sam Nang, Howard's watching. Melissa Moore is always watching. So we're going to read some of the stats. So 4 of the reasons why our jails are full of black and Spanish and poor people. So I want you to listen to this. The United States Department of Justice reports 2.2 million people are in our nation's jails and prisons, and another 4.5 people are on probation or parole in the United States, totaling 6.8 million people one of every adult, 35 adults. We are far away. The world leader is putting our own people in jail. Most of the people inside are poor, black, and Spanish. Here are 40 reasons why. Now, once again, the fact that it's 40 reasons is just...
That's a staggering. But I'm going to give you some more statistics that are even more staggering that'll just, that really blow you away. The United States represents only 5% of the population on the planet.
That's right.
However, we have and boast 25% of the population of incarcerated people. That means that out of all of the people who are incarcerated, we represent 25% of those people. We incarcerate 25% of the people on the planet that are incarcerated. We control them, but we only are 5% of the population in the entire world.
Yep.
Now, to go even deeper, black and browns, the minorities, right? here in the United States only represent 13% of the population here in the United States, which is 320 something million people, only 13% of that. However, we represent 35% of those that are incarcerated of the 2.2 million that he talked about. And that is incredible. Now, if you were talking about copy paper, if you were talking about staples to a company on Wall Street, they would have there will be a huge breakdown. There was a big meeting. Somebody's got to change something because they would know the statistics. They would break into it and say, listen, we're losing money here. But if we have a population of people that are being decimated through incarceration, and these statistics are available and produced by the government, I don't understand why somebody has not already raised a flag and done something, crazy about what's happening right now. I mean, this should be like a barn fire about this in every town, saying, hey, listen, we are locking up our people and we need to let them go.
And this is what I said, listen to some of these stats. So it's not just about crime. Our jails and prisons have grown from holding about 500,000 people in 1980 to 2.2 million today. The fact that crime rates have risen and fallen independently of our growing incarceration rates. 2, police discriminate. The first step in putting people in jail starts with interaction between police and citizens. From the very beginning, Black and Spanish and poor people are targeted by police. Police departments have engaged in campaigns of stopping and frisking people who are walking, mostly poor and people of color, without cause for decades. Recently, in New York City, lost a federal civil rights challenge to their police stop and frisk practices by the Center for Constitutional Rights, during which police stopped over 500,000 people annually without any indication that the people stopped have been involved in any crime at all. About 80% of those stops were Black and Latinos, who comprised 25 to 20% of New York City total population. Chicago police do the same thing, stopping even more people, also in racially discriminatory way, with 72% of stops of Black people, even though the city is 32% Black.
Now, Alvin, I mean, anybody who's listening to this, anybody who read that, anybody who watched this is probably blown away, but I want to dig a little bit deeper.
Okay.
I've been thinking about it, right? And processing this. I want you to just put your hat on this for a second. If you have a group of people who have been arrested over time, like all, through history, these people are now locked out of, because of the criminal justice system, right, locked out of jobs that allow them into policing. So if a young kid, a young Black kid or a Spanish kid is arrested, develops a few arrests as a kid just because of, small little interactions with the police, because police aren't actually policing, they're just incarcerating, or they're just grabbing you up and processing you, and now you get a record for next to nothing, you don't want to become a cop.
No.
So then who has to do the policing? So they're bringing in police that are not from the area. They don't know the community. They don't look like the community. So if you've got this white cop coming into this all Black or Spanish neighborhood, they don't relate, they can't connect, and then now everyone that's in the community, and not to say that those people are bad,
right,
but just to say that, hey, you don't look like me.
That's right.
Now, and people,
and there's no connection.
There's no connection. So you support, love, care about, buy from, do things with people that look like you, act like you, or you can relate to. So if you really can't connect and relate to somebody, you're not as patient, you're not as understanding, and you're not willing to support them. So then what happens is you end up locking them up. So then the cycle begins, and it goes on and it never ever stops, where you're locking these kids up who can't come out and get a job. They don't want to become police. They don't want to actually do the good work that police should do in the community. And then now we have this cycle of those that can't get a job, period, and then they're resorting to the lowest forms of earning income, which is crime.
And the system is made to work against us rather than for us. So it's crazy because once again, like I said, if you read the stats and you say to yourself, like you hear it, but when you actually read it and look at it, and you're like, wow, this is really happening. It's right here in my face, and this is what's being recorded. Imagine what's not being recorded.
Absolutely.
So you have police traffic stops also are racially targeted people in cars. Black drivers are 31% more likely to be pulled over than white drivers. Hispanic drivers are 23% likely to be pulled over than white drivers. In Connecticut, in an April 2015 report, there were 620,000 traffic stops, which revealed widespread racial profiling, particularly during daylight hours when the race of driver was more visible.
Wow. Now, Alvin, you gotta just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if the government, if the state's statistical information, which is available to them, shows them this type of information, and nothing has changed. There's no new policies that we're hearing about. There's nothing that's actually changing it. It just says that the government is already turning a blind eye to it. Now, I'm sure you do as well. I've got a lot of white friends.
Of course.
My network is full and diverse for people.
That's right.
And I don't have anything against any other race at all. But I will defend and say that my white brothers and white sisters do not have the same concerns that we do.
We do.
That's it. There's a privilege that is there because they don't have to worry when they're driving in their car and a cop stops them. They don't have the fear that some imminent huge danger is going to befall them. All they think is, oh man, I'm going to get a ticket. Oh man, this is going to cost me some money. They don't have the same concerns
as we do.
As we do.
And it's crazy because we have to have, we grew up both in the hood. It's like, and I'm sure our parents spoke to us and spoke to you about how to behave when you're stopped by the police. And it's a shame that we have to have
coaching,
a script.
That's right. Special coaching
we
to
have
survive.
to have a script on when and what to do when we're stopped by the police. Now, we have social media. So now we see so much things on social media. People now are thinking that they're lawyers, they're reciting these laws, and that still doesn't work. Because you have an attitude, and now the cop has an attitude.
That's right.
And it's not doing you any justice. And it's amazing because we're the only group of people, black and Spanish, that have to be coached. Because I'm sure anyone who's watching, when you're on the highway and the state troopers are there or the police are there, and you drive past the police officer, the first thing you do is look at the rearview mirror to see whether or not
that cop is following you. And when you're driving and you're in an area that is unfamiliar to you, you're actually concerned for your life.
You are.
I mean, when you've got these things that have already been embedded in your mind from the videos, from people's cameras in their phone and in their cars, where they have shown real incidents.
Yeah.
Where black people are killed, by accident, or well, not by accident. Let's not say it by accident. They're being killed and murdered
for no reason.
Right, but considered an accident. Cops are not being prosecuted and being convicted. You just feel like, hey, this could be my time. How could I do anything? What could I do to protect myself? How could I keep myself from either going to jail or being killed just because of a simple, traffic stop?
And real quick, big shout out to Matthew Dempsey who's watching. I gave him a shout out earlier.
Hey,
I told him to come see you, get a free Mercedes-Benz. Brett Mitchell, thank you, bro, for watching. I grew up with him. So I want to read something else briefly. It also says, one stop, black and Hispanic motorists are more likely to be given tickets than white drivers stopped for the same offense, right? Number 5. We're just on number 5.
Out of 40.
Out of 40. So I know we're not going to complete it tonight, but we're just on number 5.
You guys get that? We're only at number 5 out of 40.
Number 5 says, one stop, black and Latinos are more likely to be searched. The Department of Justice reports black drivers at traffic stops were searched by police 3 times more often, and Hispanic drivers are searched 2 times more often than white drivers. A large research study in Kansas City found when police decided to pull over cars for
Investigatory. Wow, that's a
not even a
big
word, right?
Investigatory.
Tory stops.
You got that word?
Where officers look into the car's interior, ask probing questions, and even search the car, the race of the driver was a clear indicator of who was going to be stopped.
Wow.
28% of young black males, 25 or younger, were stopped in a year's time, versus to white men who had 12% chance and white women only 7% chance. In fact, not until black men reach 50 years old do their rate of police stops for this kind of treatment dip below those of white men.
Wow, you got to be an old guy in order to be.
Hold on. Black men, 50 years or older, of those of a white man that's 25 and under.
Wow.
And this is from the Department of Justice.
The Department of Justice. And here's what's so staggering about that. The Department of Justice is putting out these statistics. They are accumulating the data. They're digesting the data. They know the numbers. They see what's going on. Now, let me tell you, if we were talking about paper clips, and the Department of Justice was losing paper clips, they would find out where the paper clips were being lost, where the leak was. They would solve it.
You're right.
Whether you're talking about ink pens, whether you're talking about somebody was, using up too much water in the break room, it doesn't matter. These statistics would cause somebody to take some action.
Right.
And it is alarming, but not surprising, that no one has really taken major notice or done anything about it.
If you're just tuning in to Alvin After Dark, I have a good friend of mine, LeRod Small. We're talking about his challenging experience going through the criminal justice system for something he shouldn't even have been arrested for. And we're actually going over 40 reasons why our jails are full of black and Spanish poor people. And we're actually reading some statistics and facts from the Department of Justice, which are facts. And the fact that these are facts and the system has not changed the way they operate dealing with young black and Spanish people is a problem. It's a problem.
Absolutely.
You ask us to govern ourselves accordingly. When we do, it's a problem. When we don't, it's a bigger problem. So if you're watching, we ask that you share this page on your page. And this is information that we all need to have. It's scary, it's sad, and it's a cycle that keeps on happening over and over and over. And it's happening generation from generation. It's happening from neighborhood to neighborhood to neighborhood. It's kind of like, what do we do? What do we do? And we want police to police. It's not we don't want them to police. We want them to police. But the mere fact is the system is an antiquated system. The laws are old, and things have changed through technology and time, but the system is still broken. Like we just said earlier,
I gotta say,
I can do something and my bail is $500. And I can't afford $500, so I've been sitting in prison for years for $500 for smoking weed.
That's right.
For smoke. So now I'm a part of the criminal justice system. I've lost everything, and the system is broken.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this. I mean, we're creatures. We're creatures of incentive, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is driven by something, right? We're driven by the few senses, whether it's food, it's hunger, whether it's sex, and the biggest one is probably money.
That's right.
Right? People are motivated by money. Now, our system, especially here in the United States, incentivizes our police officers, our corrections officers, everybody through money to incarcerate our people. See, it's too big to fail. And what I'm going to say right now really is going to be a shocker to some, but it's going to be just a simple eye opener to those that are participants, especially those that are in corrections, those that are in police and defense. And I love you guys. I love our women and our men who are at the front lines protecting us, who are keeping keeping order, because if no one keeps order, then it goes into chaos.
It's chaos.
However, our system is set up to incentivize locking people up. Think about overtime. It doesn't take 6 hours, 8 hours to process somebody. But when an arrest happens, an officer that wants to get a collar is incentivized to go into overtime by keeping somebody in the precinct. And then by taking them downtown and going through the process, now there's more overtime and there's more time for the judges, for all the corrections officers, for everybody who's the court officers. And then if somebody is convicted, and if there's an opportunity for the judge to give leniency or to send somebody to jail, they're already being incentivized through lobbyists and through the private prisons to put somebody in jail and for longer sentences. You've got lobbyists that are being paid millions of dollars to lobby our politicians for stronger laws, for longer sentences, to keep people in jail longer. You've got private prisons that are paying off judges, and this is happening to actually send people to these prisons so that these prisons can earn income and make more money per bed.
Now, it's funny you talked about the income, which goes into number 6.
Because it's all about the income.
Because goes into number 6. Traffic tickets are big business. And even if most people do not go directly to jail for a traffic ticket, poor people are hit the worst by these ticket systems. As we saw with Ferguson, where some of the towns in St. Louis receive 40% or more of their city revenues from traffic tickets, tickets are a money maker for cities. Number 70 says the consequences of traffic tickets are much more severe among poor people. I'm going to say it again. The consequences
That's correct.
of a traffic tickets are more and much more severe among poor people.
And it only starts at the ticket. Alvin.
Yeah,
You
this is
as
just
I
a
said,
ticket.
Because once it starts with the ticket, it doesn't stop there.
No.
Once you get the ticket, then it goes up a little bit, and then they tow your car, then you can't get your car back, and then
And this is just a traffic ticket.
it starts with a ticket.
It says people with means will just pay the fines, but for poor people and working people, fines are a real hardship. For example, over 4 million people in California do not have a valid driver's license because they have unpaid fines and fees for traffic tickets alone. And we know unpaid tickets can lead to jail.
Arrests.
What you here for, player? I killed 4 people. What you here for?
A warrant.
Traffic ticket? You gonna be my bitch.
And what's so funny is I got to tell you, and this is honest, is that recently during my my little process, there were people in the cells with me that were there for warrants for traffic. I remember, it was 10 years ago, the night that I was going to buy my house. I was buying a house, and I had a lot on my mind. I was coming back. I was on my motorcycle. It was over 10 years ago. And, I was weaving in and out of traffic, and a cop stopped me. And the cop ran my license and said, "Hey, you have a warrant for an unpaid ticket." And I said, "Oh, well, I didn't know about that, And he said, "Well, I'm going to have to take you in." So he took me in. They took my motorcycle in and all that. They put me through the entire process. I told them, "Hey, listen, I got a closing for my house tomorrow. I'm buying my very first house tomorrow. Whatever it is, I'll pay the ticket. Whatever's going on, it's no problem." It wasn't, a tragedy. It wasn't a violent crime, but they made me spend the night in jail. I missed my closing in order to go through that particular process for a traffic ticket. Now, true policing, if these people really believe that they worked for us as a citizen, me as a citizen,
Try it.
right? They could easily see that, I'm
No threat.
I'm no threat. I'm not causing a problem. I'm paying my taxes, right? I was on the clock at the time, right? And that's a we getting hit up here. Right? I was on the clock at the time and getting these issues. So I just want to bring it to the forefront.
Yeah.
Especially for our officers that are watching. You have the chance. You're at the front lines.
That's right.
You've got the discretion to do true policing.
That's right. You do.
To do real policing, to do good work. And it could stop with you right from the street. It could stop right there. And if it stopped right there, then the entire process all the way to the end would be affected. If we could affect those officers right on the front lines, right in the street, and soften their hearts to understand that it is the community that they serve that they must protect. And if the policies did not incentivize them, hey, I have an idea. What if we did not offer overtime when you gave an arrest? If you arrested somebody, you only had 1 hour to process that person. And if that person had to go downtown or go to you had to take them all the way through. That one arresting officer was responsible for going through the entire process with them without being paid extra.
They wouldn't do it.
They wouldn't do it. They would not do it. They would not be financially incentivized to just shove our kids through the system to be tagged and bagged. And when I say that, I really mean that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're getting retinal scans. They're scanning their eyes. They're checking their tattoos. They're scanning their fingers. And now they're in the system forever. Hey, Alvin, man, this is...
Melissa Moore says, well, that will probably be the last time to have the truth about statistics from the Department of Justice, because with the new administration, those statistics will be alternative facts. Rudy Harper is watching.
That's
Thanks,
funny.
Rudy Harper, for tuning in. She
funny.
also says, tickets were one of the issues they found to be a way of harassment in Missouri when the Department of Justice did their investigation after the Michael Brown murder. So I'm going to read some of the stats again. And we're just on number 8, right? So in schools, African-American kids are much more likely to be referred to the police than other kids. African-American students are 16% of those enrolled in schools, but 27% of those referred to the police. So, I'm going to say it again. In schools, African-American kids are much more likely to be referred to the police than other kids. African-American students are 16% of those enrolled in schools, but 27% of those referred to the police. Kids with disabilities are discriminated against, and about the same rate, because they are 14% of those enrolled in school and 26 of those referred to police. Number 9 says, though black people make up 12% of the United States population, black children are 28% of the juvenile arrests. The Department of Justice reports that there are over 57,000 people under the age of 21 in juvenile detention. The United States even has 10,000 children in adult jails and prisons at any given day.
That is a criminal shame. It is a global offense.
It's number 10. The war on drugs targets black and Spanish people. Fact.
That's a fact.
It's a fact.
I mean, look at right now, our presidential administration now have decided that opium and opiate drugs are the one that we need to target because there's a crisis there.
In the white community.
In the white communities. But that's not in the black and brown and the minority community.
Whenever it's in the black and brown community, it's an epidemic.
It's an epidemic. There's a mental issue. There's a health issue. It's a health issue.
In white communities.
Right. But in black communities, now all of a sudden, it's a crime, and we need to be tougher on crime. If you think about cocaine, right, from back in the days, raw cocaine in its rawest form is very expensive, right? And it's a high class drug, if you will. Only the selective use it. But the cheaper, the other form of it, which was crack cocaine,
That's right.
that was used in the poor communities, the black
the 80s
communities,
and 90s.
right, was now chosen to be the particular
Poor
product,
people's drug.
poor people's drug, was now the one that received the highest sentencing. I mean, it was so obvious that 4 times the amount of cocaine could get you half the time that you would for that same amount of crack cocaine. And it even persists today. To this very day, those drugs which are, party drugs used in white communities are now just, overlooked, whereas you've got crack cocaine and dope and these types of things in the poor communities. Now those are being targeted, huge sentences, tough on crime, war on drugs. I think that
it's weird. You said war on drugs.
right.
It's like because number 10 says the war on drugs targets black people.
Wow.
Drug arrests are a big source of bodies and business for the criminal legal system.
Absolutely.
Half the arrests these days are for drugs, and half of those are for marijuana. Let me read that again. Because now, is marijuana a drug or not? Because it says here, which is crazy.
I don't know.
It says half the arrests these days are for drugs, and the other half is for marijuana. So is the Department of Justice not calling marijuana a drug? Because I got this from the Department of Justice. And you know what? As I'm reading it out loud, and I'm reading one more time. It says half the arrests these days are for drugs, and the other half of those are for marijuana, despite the fact that black and white people use marijuana at the same rates. The ACLU found a black person is 3.7 times more likely to be arrested for possession of marijuana than a white person, which is some of the reasons why so many young black and Hispanic people are in jail. They're in jail for marijuana and cannot afford either a correct representation to get them out of jail, or they can't afford the bail money, which is $500, $1,000, $2,000. So these young people are sitting in jail for years. Recently we had a young brother, I forgot his name, who hung himself in jail or killed himself in jail because he was there for no reason. So it's a shame.
It's a criminal shame.
It's
and
a
when I
shame.
say that, I really mean that. I mean, it's a criminal shame that our judicial system, our government, and I'm sure the rest of the world, like if you look at it from a global platform, is looking at us and is ashamed of us because it's an embarrassment.
It is.
If the United States was a company, if it were a company, like, a publicly traded company, any other country in the world would not buy into this company.
It wouldn't.
Into this country. No, it'd be a bad stock.
It wouldn't.
Because we just don't have the stats that show that we are a healthy economy of people. Not
right.
Economy of money, economy of people in the way that we treat our people. And I want to say this too. If you think about the way that the judicial system is run and the way that the money is moving, you've got most of the income that comes in through from people who are incarcerated going into jobs.
That's right.
And we've created this economy of jobs that is almost too big to even fail, and our people would just need to be retooled. You've got, you've got these towns, the entire complete towns and cities that are wrapped around large prison and jail facilities,
That's right.
and they thrive off of them. They're paying the pensions, they're paying the salaries, they're paying with overtime. All of these people are surviving because they're incarcerating these brown and these black people and these minorities, these Spanish people in these communities, and they need it to persist.
They do. And, real briefly, Melissa Moore says Missouri has such an issue that the NAACP has issued a travel ban for African Americans. Lennox Jeffrey says this is why the Panthers were considered the #1 threat to communism, because it would have rose to our community of army and protecting force is not to be stepped on. Melissa Moore also says, look what happened to Khalif. Oh, that's what I think.
Khalif Brown.
Yeah, Khalif Browder, 16 years old, here in New York, thrown in Rikers with adults because he couldn't afford $900 bond, remained in Rikers Island for 3 years, spending most of his time. I think that's the kid that killed himself.
Yeah, solitary.
That's what I was talking
Yeah,
about.
and salute to Jay-Z. I don't know if he'll ever get a chance to check this out, but if you do, salute to Jay-Z and the entire team that put that out on in Netflix.
Yeah.
Salute to Netflix.
Unique Adidas, thanks for tuning in. Once again, if you're watching, you're just watching. We were on live with LeRod Smalls, who was sharing his experience going through the New York City criminal justice system. I was reading something else, a stat. Back to number 10, it said the ACLU found that in some states, black people were 6 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana than whites. For all drug arrests between 1980 and the year 2000 in the United States, black drug arrest rate rose dramatically from 6.5 to 6.5 to 29.1 per 1,000 persons. During the same period, the white drug arrests. The rate barely increased from 3.5 to 4.6.
Wow.
Listen to this. I'm going to say it again. Black and Spanish people drug arrest rate rose from 6.5 to 29.1 per 1,000 person, whereas a white drug arrest increased from 3.5 to 4.6.
What a shame.
What a shame.
I mean, these statistics are being put out by your Department of Justice.
That's right.
By your Department of Justice is producing these statistics, this information.
Yeah.
What are they doing with it? If they're producing these statistics and they know what it is, why is it that these policies are not being, there's not policies being implemented to create the type of change that would have an effect systemically?
Try.
And I'm going to tell you, and I could keep harping on it, it all goes back to the money, and people are being incentivized to lock people up. And the moment that our mayors and our governors pull the incentive back, they take the money away, they take it off the table, where our officers, our corrections officers, our judges, and our politicians are not being incentivized to lock people up. All these private prisons that are spending millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars in lobbying and in kickbacks and in all the other things that they're doing in order to maintain this status quo, then all of a sudden, I promise you, and I really believe this, that you would see a sharp decline in the amount of black and minority peoples being arrested and incarcerated. And I'm going to tell you this, globally, we would now have a workforce that would now be available to us, and we wouldn't have to export our jobs to China. We wouldn't have to export our jobs out of the country, because we would have a living workforce that would be here. 2.2 million people would be rejoining our society. That means that we would have more fathers for families, right?
That's right.
We would have more workers. We would have more people to teach other people, and we would have less degradation in our communities, because now we would have a less impact on our communities and our families and our possible leaders that could grow into producing results.
But there's some more, but she said her name was Felicia Waynes. Hey, what's going on, Felicia? How you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Unique D says, salute to Jay-Z for bringing that to our attention in the documentary. Now going back to what LeRod just said, if you look at, now it becomes, as you see, it goes into money reasons where, like I said, 11. Many people in jail and prison because the United States have a tougher drug laws and much larger and longer sentences for drug offenses than most other countries, which we just said. Drug offenders receive an average sentence of 7 months in France, 12 months in England, and 23 months in the United States. And that's even too much, right?
I mean, if you look at it, the disparity, it's so dramatic. Alvin, it's like so dramatic. We're talking about 3 to 4 times other first world countries. We're not talking about third world countries.
Right.
We're talking about countries that are older than ours. You're talking about in countries in Europe that have been established hundreds of years. This country's only over 250 years old, something like that, right? And these countries have been operating, and they understand what it is to, maintain order. And they've established these laws, and they've got incarceration rates and things that they're paying attention to. Why is it that our country now has these policies set up, especially around drugs? You think about violent crimes. You think about murder. You're thinking about, financial crimes. None of these crimes are nearly even scratching the
Close,
surface.
exactly.
To,
Now, what LeRod's point is that it's jail is a business. I'm going to read to you. I'm reading from 12 to 14 and 15. I'm going to read to you for the next 10 minutes or so how much money the United States takes in. It is going to blow your damn mind. Hey, Tiger, what's going on? Gilbert Picasso, what's going on? I see you. So the bail system penalizes poor people every day. There are about 500,000 people are in jail who are still presumed innocent. I just said that. 500,000 people in jail who are still presumed innocent and waiting trial just because they are too poor to pay the money. Too poor to pay the money. Where was I? Too poor. Got you. Too poor to pay the money. When you look at the charges, the amounts for bail to pay is $2,500 or less.
That is crazy.
$2,500 or less, right?
So for $2,500 or less, you can get justice. You can get justice if you've got $2,500 less, if you've got a good lawyer. But if you don't, justice is not available.
Now here's what's crazy. That's a study in 2013, right? So now I'm gonna go down here. I'm gonna skip a little bit because I want you to pay attention to this. I'll go to 13. Jails and prisons provide a lot of jobs to local, you said earlier, to local, state, and federal officials. To understand how the system works it is good to know the difference between jails and prisons. Jails are local, usually for people recently arrested and waiting trial. Prisons are state and federal, are for people who have already been convicted. There are more than 3,000 local jails across the United States, according to the Vera Institute, and together usually hold about 500,000 people waiting trial. An additional 200,000 are so convicted on minor charges. Over the course of a year, these local jails process 11.7 million prison people, process 11.7 million people. Prisons are a state of federal lockups, which usually hold twice that number of people as local jails, just over 1.5 million prisoners. Now, skipping 14, criminal bonds are a big business. Nationwide, over 60% of people arrested are forced to post a financial bond to be released pending trial, usually by posting cash or a house or paying bond company.
Now, I want to stop you for a quick second. I want to bring attention to this, Alvin. This is real story, right? Is that some of the cops, and I'm speaking to some of our officers, the great officers that are out there on the front line.
Before you finish that,
right?
I'm going to say what he has to say, but talk about criminal bonds, the industry takes on $14 billion every year.
14
We're in the wrong business.
billion. I know, I was about to say, man. I think
No, we
maybe
gonna say,
should
I'm
be in
sorry.
bonds.
We should
need
be
to
in
get
bail
the
bondsmen.
bail bondsmen
We
right
was-
now,
we should
right?
some good bail
Maybe some-
bondsmen.
Get some money out of that.
At least we have a connection with the community.
Yeah, but I mean, you want to think about this, right? Is that in the industry, right? In our officers that are really out there and they're doing their best, and I don't knock them, and I want to say this, humbly, is that they have an opportunity to stop this process right at the door.
Yeah.
Right? They have a process to stop it. But once it goes through, and once someone is arrested and they go through this process, those that are the poor among us, the poorest of among us, now don't have any opportunity to get good representation.
They don't.
To resist the great representation of the prosecutors, right? Then those people get sucked into a more violent system, moving on to deeper jails, right? Like deeper jails before they go to prisons, where they now interact and create and have more conflict. So a kid that gets locked up for smoking weed or loitering ends up on a Rikers Island or another community jail, wherever you are in the country, now gets into altercations and now get into fights in these local places and catches more charges, right? Catching a charge for fighting and defending themselves. I mean, if you know anything about being incarcerated, there's laws, there's operating agreements that got to be adhered to.
That's right.
When you're incarcerated. You follow what I'm saying? Whether you're at a local jail or a prison. And that means defending yourself, protecting yourself.
That's right.
And and not reporting it if you're going to survive.
That's right.
And what happens to them is then they end up trying to survive, getting caught up in the system, catching another charge for fighting or for doing some other infraction, go in for something light, and end up leaving with a bigger charge than they did when they first came in.
That's right.
And that's a shame.
Now, Melissa Moore says, well, that will probably be the last time they have the truth. But, oh, no, I think I just read that. Unica D says, I invite everyone to read The New Jim Crow. I forgot the author's name, but the jail system is the modern day plantation. Once you get in the jail system, the plantation, how many really escape with their freedom? Voting rights are revoked, job prospects are slim, etc. Money should be invested in education, career development, and trades. It definitely should be. This is once again. Listen, we got about 5 minutes left, but once again, we were just on 12 and 13. I'm sorry, we were just on 15. And
where can they find this?
This was actually, what I googled this. So you can Google, and this was 40 reasons why our jails are full of black and poor people by Bill Quiegel. And this was actually written. It's written the blog because when I googled it, so much information came out. This is written on June 2nd, 2017. It was posted. So once again, 40 reasons why our jails are full of black and poor people. And like I said, we just on 15. We didn't go through the whole 40. And I just wanted to bring light because once again, when I saw my brother Larod on Facebook at the beginning of last week, and he's always on doing something on Facebook Live. You can always catch him. He's always doing something with his working out or talking about his investments and talking about him being an entrepreneur. But I seen him upset. He was upset. And for a few years I've known him, I've never seen him in that light to be that upset. So I hit it immediately, and I was like, "Yo, you coming on the show?
Yeah, we got to talk about
we got to talk about this." So if it's your first time tuning in to Alvin After Dark, once again, if you're tuning in, I'm here every Tuesday night. We discuss entertainment, fashion, health, relationship, trending topics. And if you ever want to come on the show, I've given everyone an open door policy. I've created a platform for any entrepreneur to market themselves, market their product. People always say, "Oh, what are you going to charge me?" I don't charge anything. People always ask me what I want. If you want to give a donation to the show, you can always give a donation. Put it in the envelope, hand it to me, but I don't ask for anything. But I do have a lot of hats. But, this is a Standard Pro Vietnamese hat. I always wear a hat either for Freak Life or Vietnamese collection. Once again, creating that platform for people. And once again, we ran out of time, but we were just on number 15. And I want to thank Larod Smalls for being a part of the show this evening. It was great because the energy was always there. And before we leave tonight, what do you have to say?
Well, I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank you for creating this conversation.
Definitely.
It's a conversation that it needs to be had, and we need to share it. You need to spread it. You need to talk to people about it. I'm looking forward to helping people. I've built a business I started in 2003 called UpNorthServices.com. That's UPNORTH services.com. And you can find out more about it by going to our website or doing a Google search for it. And you'll find that what we do is we bridge the gap between families and those that are incarcerated and help them to stay connected. We realize that those people who receive packages and have relationships with people who are incarcerated, they do not come out and repeat the same process. So for those that don't know, it's called recidivism. It's coming out of jail and going right back to jail. And our mission here at Up North Services is to resist recidivism, stop the swinging door of people who are being locked up in our communities and never getting out of that process. And what we want to do is help to create more families. And that's what we're about. So I'm in the process of developing a new book. Look out for it coming in the next month or so, called Conpreneur. And I'll be teaching and sharing some of the best strategy stuff that I've learned through other individuals who have been ex-cons who have worked for me when they come home, or have done their own businesses and been very successful using what they've learned being incarcerated, graduating from prison into prosperity. So look out for that. Again, my name is Lerard Smalls. You can find me online. Look me up, Lerrod, or at Up North Services on Instagram or upnorthservices.com.
Got you. And once again, if you're first time looking at Alvin After Dark, thank you for tuning in with my brother Lerard Smalls. And I want to wish everyone a healthy, wonderful Thanksgiving. And remember that the good Lord don't put you through nothing you can't handle. And be thankful because what you're complaining about, someone else doesn't have. So always realize that, and it's very, very important. And I always joke around with this and I say, well, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How you change the world? Change the world with one random kind act at a time. So once again, happy holidays to everyone. We're going to be here live next week, Tuesday, 11 p.m. And here's a word from our sponsor. Have a good night. Happy holidays. I want you to gobble until you wobble.
God bless everyone.
Have a good night.
Hydration is key. And when it comes to body water, here's why. It has inositol in it, which is good for your brain. Has niacinamide in it, which is excellent for your circulation. And just the water itself is excellent for your internal organs and your joints. It has 7 grams of carbs, which is excellent for your energy source while you're working out. And it has each and every B vitamin that you need to remain energetic. Body Aqua. Be bold, be brave, and be only daring to yourself.